right. At this point, everybody should be able to see the BizMiner website. There's a few things that I'm going to cover during my aspect of today's live demo. The first is where BizMiner data comes from and the reliability of that data. After covering that topic, I'm going to move on to how to create and access a BizMiner report on our database. I'm then going to cover the benefits and features of our new industry financial report. We actually released that new financial report a few months ago. So for those of you who already use BizMiner, it'll be a good introduction to that redesigned industry financial report and some of the new features and benefits of that report. After that, I'm going to move on to our industry market report. That's a less familiar report, so I want to go over that and show you some of the features and benefits of that report. So as I said, I want to first start off on where the BizMiner data comes from. So BizMiner actually collects data from both public government sources and private statistical sources. You can see from the list I have up on my screen right now, we use about 17 different sources to collect the data, including government sources like the IRS and the U.S. Census, and also private statistical sources like credit reporting agencies and business directories. So really on a basic level, what we do is we collect raw data from all of these sources, aggregate it together, clean it, and analyze it in order to create these reports. Now using all these different sources allows us to have a very large data set. At any point in time, we're collecting data from about 18 million active business operations, which allows us to produce very granular statistical reports. As far as the reliability of the data goes, we've been producing these industry financial reports for about 15 years now. So we've really perfected the process of collecting and analyzing this data. In terms of the reliability of it, it's actually used by obviously a lot of business valuation professionals, CPAs, about 30,000 banking professionals. It's accepted in U.S. tax court. It's also used by state and national taxing agencies like the IRS and the Canada Revenue Agency. So it's very well vetted and reliable information at this point. Now that we've covered the sources of this data, what I want to get into is how you actually use the database and how you create and access these reports. So the first thing that you always want to do when you're creating an industry financial report is to search for and select your client's industry. One of the great things about the BizMiner database is that we report on over 5,000 industries. So that allows you to drill down and focus on a very specific industry segment that directly relates to your client's line of business. Because we cover so many different industries, we do give you a few different ways to search. You can search by NAICS code. So for example, if I typed in 238220 and hit search, 238220 is the code for plumbing, heating, and air conditioning contractors. So that's one of the ways that you can search. I also want to point out the extended NAICS code system that we use. So you may notice that not only do we have a 6-digit NAICS code, but then we start to add decimal points onto the end of that. So that's our own proprietary extended NAICS code system. And what that allows us to do is to further break down industries into more specific subsegments. So instead of just getting financial benchmarks on plumbing, heating, and air conditioning contractors, you could then drill down and just do air conditioning contractors and systems, or furnace servicing, or just plumbing contractors. So again, it allows you to get benchmarks that directly relate to what you or your client is doing, rather than just settling for some broad industry segment that they fall within. So on top of searching by NAICS code, you can also search by keyword. So if I was to type in plumbing, it brings up all the industries with plumbing in the title. And you can also search by doing what's called a drill down. This will start at the sector level, such as construction, manufacturing, retail, trade. And as you click on a sector, it'll start to drill down to more specific subsegments. So once you find the industry that you're looking for, you'll go ahead and click on Show Reports. For today, I'm going to use the example of plumbing contractors, which, as you can see, is one of those extended NAICS codes. It takes the standard 6-digit NAICS code of 238220, adds a .08 to the end of it to further break it down into just plumbing contractors. So from this point, you would click on Show Reports to the right. The report we're going to be focusing mainly on today is the industry financial profile. That's going to provide you with detailed financial benchmarks for your selected industry. This is our most popular report, especially for business valuation professionals, so I will spend the majority of my time on this report today, but I am going to mention our industry market report here towards the end of the demo. Another great thing about the BizMiner database is not only can you select an industry, but you can also select a market area. That market area can be the US, or you can drill down to a state or a metro area. So for today's example, I'm going to go down to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, which is actually the metro area where BizMiner is located. Now, after I select that area, our database is going to go out and calculate sales class options, which some people refer to as a revenue range. So this will allow you to get benchmarks for businesses of a certain size depending on their annual sales. This is another big benefit of the BizMiner database. We actually have up to 15 sales classes available, but they will depend on the industry and the area that you select. So I do want to point that out and show you how you may have to change either your industry and area if you need a very specific sales class. So we've selected plumbing contractors and Harrisburg, Pennsylvania as the market area. And you can see here we have some sales class options that pop up. We do have like 1 to 500,000, 500 to $1 million, $1 million to 2.5. We also have 3 sales classes that aggregate together some of the more specific classes. So we have a small sales class with anyone from with less than 5 million in annual sales, a medium sales class with 5 million to 25, and when available, we have a large sales class with any business with more than 25 million in annual sales.
Galen, we have a couple of questions if you would like to address those right now.
Yes.
So the first question is, what is the process used to verify the data?
I'm not sure exactly what they're referring to with that specific question as far as verifying the data. I mean, one of the good things about the sources of our data is that a lot of the sources are government sources. So the data that is being given to the government, you're required by law to enter it in accurately. So we're not relying on self-reported data. Some of the databases out there actually rely on companies to enter in their own financial information, and you're not necessarily sure whether that information was accurate or entered in correctly. So the government sources that we're using, like the IRS tax returns, U.S. Census, credit reporting agencies, things of that nature, businesses are actually obviously required by law to accurately report that information. Beyond that, we go through a lot of quality control checks. So we spend a lot of our time cleaning that raw data to account for outliers, duplicates, just making sure that the information is well vetted and reliable before we produce that and make it available to our subscribers. Hopefully that answers your question. Yep.
The next question is the subdividing of the NAICS code, is that something that you guys do, or is that part of the NAICS system? I think I know the answer to this, but I'll let you respond.
Yep, that is are extended. So that's a proprietary extended NAICS code system that we've created here at BizMiner. So that's unique to us. The NAICS codes only go up to 6 digits. So usually you will see 4, 5, and 6-digit NAICS codes. We've taken the 6-digit NAICS codes and extended them out with decimal points. Any other questions at this point?
No, we just had one pop in. So I'm just going to read this straight from, it says, why does the aggregate number of firms in the small class not add up to the total firms in the small class? And it says 56 firms total, 12 firms plus 28 plus 13 equals 53, not 56.
Yeah, there's more sales classes within this. So there's a 2.5 to 5 million sales class as well. But if there's not at least 5 or more firms in a sales class, we don't make that one available. So there's no 2.5 to 5 million sales class available, but we still are able to use the firms that fall in that one in the aggregate small sales class. I hope that makes sense. So there's actually what seems to be 3 firms in the 2.5 to 5, which then get aggregated into that small sales class range.
Okay, that's it on the questions for now.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, so one of the things I want to show you is, so right now there's only a few sales classes displaying. As I mentioned earlier, we actually have up to 15 sales classes available, but it will depend on the industry and the area that you select. So we selected plumbing contractors. That's usually comprised of smaller businesses, and we're looking at Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, which is a fairly small metro area as well. So the sales classes that are available are smaller ones. The largest one that we have is 5 million to 2.5 million, and it still only has 6 firms in there. So if you need one of the larger sales classes, or if you want sales classes that have more firms in there, what you can do is always move up to a larger area. So let's say we moved up to the state of Pennsylvania instead of just the metro area of Harrisburg. So what I'm showing you now is just some basically tips and tricks to make sure you're getting exactly the report that you need. So now that we chose Pennsylvania, we can see that there's some more sales classes. There's now a 2.5 to 5 that populates. You can see that there's more firms in each one of the sales classes. We have a 5 to 10 million and 10 to 25 million class that populated. So now we have some more options available. And the same goes if we moved all the way up to the U.S. level. So if we chose all U.S., now we can see there's even more, all the way up to 100 million to 250 million a year. So those are just some things to keep in mind. What you can also do is move up to a broader industry if you really want to be down in a local market area. So just some tips and tricks to keep in mind as you're creating these reports. But what I want to do is I do want to go back down here to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. We'll choose that as the market area. And I'm going to do 5.5 to million as the sales class option. So once we've made those selections, we've chosen our industry, our market area, and our sales class, we'll just go ahead and click Access Now. Now, if you have a subscription to BizMiner, this takes you to what's called the My Reports page. This is basically a storage account for your subscription. All the reports that you've created will be stored here so you can come back and access them at a later date. If you don't have a subscription to BizMiner, you can buy these reports one at a time, and instead of clicking that Access Now button and being brought to this page, that link would say Add to Cart. You would add the report to a cart, check out, and have immediate access to this report. So just keep that in mind. Now that we're on this page, you can see the report that we just created right here. And to the right of that report are different formats that you can view the report in. There's an HTML format, PDF, and there's also a CSV option, which will export all the data to a spreadsheet. I believe Don, when he gives his case study, will be using that CSV option. I also want to point out to some of our subscribers, when we released this new version of the industry financial report, we released a new version of the CSV file as well, which means the P&L, balance sheet, line items, and the ratios are now not in the same rows and maybe not necessarily the same columns of the CSV file. We know that sometimes that causes an issue for business valuation professionals who actually feed that CSV raw data into a software that they've developed already. So what we have available is what's called a legacy CSV file. So that is the same CSV file that's been available for years now, and the industry data will be in the same rows and columns of that CSV file as it has always been. So if you're like Don Drysdale, who really has a system already in place and needs that CSV file in the same format all the time, you can continue to use that legacy CSV option. So I just wanted to make sure to point that out. But the format that I'm going to use today is actually the HTML version, because this HTML version has a lot of new features and benefits to it. So let me go ahead and download this report, and we can take a look at it. So some of the new features and benefits are it has a built-in client benchmarking tool right within this report. It also has a lot of features that are customizable, so you can really customize this report for each client that you're working with. So this report still has very granular industry financial benchmarks that you've come to expect from BizMiner, such as an industry average profit and loss statement. So if you navigate over to the profit and loss tab, you'll see the industry average profit and loss statement right here. So basically what this report is doing is it's analyzing the firms that fall within the parameters that you set. So in this case, we're analyzing plumbing contractors in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, with between 500,000 and $1 million in annual sales. So we're averaging together businesses that fall within those parameters.
Galen, we have another question.
Okay.
And the question is, how long will the legacy CSV files be available?
We're not putting a timeline on it right now. So as of now, they'll be available into the foreseeable future. And if we do decide to not make them available, we'll give you a very big heads up. So 6 months to a year to prepare for those legacy CSV files before they go away. But right now, we have no plan to take them down. Right. Yep. So back to this report, we're looking at the industry average profit and loss statement. It has 5 years of data. It actually has an extra year added onto the end right now. As you can see, it's labeled 2018 Q2. I do want to point out that that is still 12 months of data. So that's overlapping with 2017. It'll be 2017 Q2 through 2018 Q2. And then we will update these reports to year-end 2018 data in June of this year. So that's when the next update is coming in June. You can also see that you can look at the profit and loss in percentage form. You can toggle back and forth between dollar and percentages. Also, the industry average balance sheet comes in dollar and percentages. Next tab has industry ratios, which we separate out into 4 different categories. So we have ratios for cash flow, profitability, efficiency, and debt risk. Next tab is sources and uses of funds table. which is similar to a cash flow. Following tab is about the data. So this is the same as where I started off today in the demo. So it lists out the sources of this data and talks a little bit about how we collect the data as well. That way you and your client can always be confident as to where this information is coming from. And now I want to get to this last tab over here, which is Inputs Display. So this is really the biggest change to the report. It's this built-in client benchmarking tool and also a couple of sections where you can customize the report. So over here to the right is where you can input you or your client's financial information. As we scroll down, you can see that there's an input template built in right to the report. So you can use this template to input their income and expense line items as well as balance sheet. And down here at the bottom, the number of employees that they have for some additional benchmarking features. So you can use the template right here within the report to start entering in information. You also have the option of downloading our template offline. To use that option, you would click on this link up here that says Data Input Upload, and then you would click on this Industry Financial Input 5-year template. So if you clicked on this, it would bring up our template offline in an Excel spreadsheet. And then what you would do is just populate that Excel template, save it as a CSV file, and then come back to this report and upload that file. So that's what I want to do real quick. Let me go ahead and upload some inputs that I have available. All right, success. My inputs have been successfully submitted to this report. So now that we have those inputs in there, it's going to populate some additional sections to this report, and it really makes it a really nice client benchmarking tool. So what this report does is it automatically calculates your client's ratios based on those inputs, and then it compares your client's ratios to the industry ratios. And based on how they compare, they'll get some scores, and you'll also see some variances from industry averages. So if we move on to this tab actually wasn't populated before those inputs. But now that we have our client's inputs into the report, you'll see that there's this summary scores page. So your client will actually get scores. They will get an overall total score for their financial performance from 1 to 5 stars. They will also get a score in each of the 4 ratio categories of cash flow, profitability, efficiency, and debt risk. Over here to the right, there's a worth your focus area. This will actually list out ratios where your client got a low score. So it's areas where you may want to focus some attention to try to improve their performance. I also want to point out that in each section of this report, there's this comment box. So you can actually add your comments over here to the left. And then if you were to save those comments, when you create a PDF of this report, your comments will be right there within the report. So it's a nice little way to communicate, either make notes to yourself or communicate to your client right within the report. As we move on to the next section, the profit and loss tab, you'll see that now not only do we have the industry average profit and loss, but as we scroll down, we can also see your client's profit and loss right underneath it. There's also some charts that are now created. You'll see a pie chart for the industry and also a pie chart for your client.
Galen, we have another question.
Okay.
And the question is your benchmarking based on quartiles or deciles?
It's based on averages. Yeah, so we're looking at, you can call it a median or an average. So that's what we're using for the industry benchmarks. All right. Yeah, go ahead. You got another one?
No, no other questions right now.
Okay. Another table that populates with those inputs in there is the variance table. So this will show your client's variance from the industry averages on the profit and loss statement. There's a similar setup with the balance sheet section. You'll see the industry average balance sheet, firm's balance sheet, or your client's balance sheet right underneath it. There'll be some nice pie charts that populate, and also a variance from industry average table. Moving on to the ratio sections, you'll see that now you can view your client's ratios right underneath the industry ratios. And the chart section for the ratios is really great. Your client's actually going to get a score for each ratio. You'll be able to see that score. You'll also see the industry ratio and your client's ratio on this bar graph. And there's a comment box for each one of these. It's not only going to give the definition of the ratio and what the ratio means, but also give a little bit of some insight as to how your client is doing with this ratio. For example, it says for the current ratio, higher is better unless it constrains necessary investments, and your score suggests that the business reflects better liquidity practices than the industry average. So nice little summary of what this ratio means and the score that your client got. You can also add your comments here. And it's going to do this for each ratio in the report. Also, just like with the profit and loss and balance sheet, you will get the variance table. So it'll show your client's variance from the industry ratios. Next section, it's the same sources and uses of funds table, so this doesn't populate with any of your client inputs. We have about the data again. There is a section within this tab called scoring, and this will give you more information on our scoring methodology. So if you and or your client wants more information on how we're coming up with those scores, you can read about that right within the report. And then we're back to the inputs display tab. In addition to inputting your client's financial information, there's a couple of other things that you can do on this page. You can configure the display of the report. So this does default to show all the years of information, so 5 years of data. It has a couple of different sections of metrics, and it has 34 financial ratios. But you can actually pick and choose what you want to display in this report. So let's say we only want to display 2016 and 17 data. We don't want the sources and uses of funds table, and maybe there's just 5 or 10 key ratios that we want to focus on. So you can actually pick and choose using these check boxes what you want to display in the report. A nice little feature in here. You can also create a cover page. So you can enter your name and logo and contact information, as well as your client's name and logo right down here at the bottom. And then you can go ahead and click Submit. Now you can see as we go back through, there's only 2 years of data here. And if we go to the ratio section, it's only going to display the ratios that we selected. Now, once you're done customizing the report with your client's inputs and picking and choosing what you want to display in the report, you can create a PDF using the PDF icon up in the upper right-hand corner, or you can export all this data to an Excel spreadsheet using the CSV icon. All right, that concludes the aspect of today's webinar covering the industry financial report. What I want to do now is quickly show you one other report that we have available that you might find useful, which is our industry market report. Before I do that, I just want to quickly check with Don to see if there's been any questions about this financial report that have come through before I move on to that market report.
We don't have any more questions at this point.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Don. All right, so I'm going to go back to the BizMiner website. Now I'm going to go through the process for creating an industry market report, which is very similar to the process for the financial report. So again, you want to start off by doing an industry search. Let's stick with our same example of plumbing contractors. So I'm just going to do a keyword search for plumbing, and here in the second choice is plumbing contractors. Go ahead and click Show Reports. So this page does list out all the reports that we have available for that industry. As you can see, there's quite a few reports here. We just covered our industry financial profile. The next one I want to cover is our industry market report. One of the really cool features about this report is that you can drill down to even more local market areas than with the financial report. It's a little bit easier for us to collect this market data than it is to get financial statements on companies. So we have more businesses that are being analyzed in these reports, which of course allows us to drill down to even more local market areas. So when you get to this page, it's asking you to define a market area for your report. The first option here allows you to choose all U.S., a state, or a metro area. And if I went down to Pennsylvania again, you can see that there's even more metro areas available. There's actually what we call micro areas available as well. Not only is there areas like Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Harrisburg, and the major metro areas, but there's some of the smaller ones as well, such as Altoona, Bloomsburg, Johnstown, Lancaster, things of that nature. The next option here allows you to choose a county. So for this option, you would first choose a state, and then it's going to show you what counties are available. The third option here allows you to enter 1 or up to 5 zip codes to create your own area. And the final option is a fairly new option, and that's a market radius. For this one, you'd want to enter in a center point. So you would enter in an address and zip code. That will be the center point for the radius. And then up here in this box, you will type in how big you want the radius to be. And it can range anywhere from 1 up to a 100-mile radius. For my example today, I'm going to use a county. Let's go back up here to select a county, and I'm going to choose Lancaster County in Pennsylvania. Just like with the other report, you'll click Access Now. If you don't have a subscription to BizMiner, that link will say Add to Cart. So you can also buy these reports one at a time if you want to try it out. So we're back on the My Reports page, the storage account for my subscription, and we have this industry market report right here. This report also comes in HTML, PDF, and CSV format. I'm going to bring up this report in HTML format because similar to the financial report, it has some interactive features, and it does have a benchmarking tool built in as well. So we'll take a look at those. All right, this is the industry market report for plumbing contractors in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. So very similar to the financial report in terms of the layout. There's different tabs across the top of the screen that allow you to navigate to the different sections of the report. What I want to first do is navigate to the Inputs tab all the way to the right. Similar to the financial report, this does allow for some inputs. But it's not as detailed as the financial one. It's not asking for a whole lot of information. It's just simply asking for your client's annual sales, number of employees, average wage, and rent. You can enter it in for the past 3 to 4 years. You can also create a cover page for this report with your name and your client's name and logo. So just bear with me for a moment here. I'm going to enter in some values for this. So I'm just going to real quickly, plug in $1 million for each one of these. Say there's 5 employees, $40,000 wage. Obviously, it wouldn't be the same for every year if you're actually working with the client, but just to save some time, I'll just throw some numbers in here so you can see how it works. All right, let's go ahead and submit those inputs. Actually, let me go back in. I want to input a client name as well because that will display. So let's say ABC Plumbing. Great. And now it takes us back to the beginning of the report. This report's really cool because it's going to give you a ton of market statistics, and they're all going to be specific to the industry and the area that you selected. And this is really hard to find information. Usually when you're doing market research, you tend to get information, national trends, regional trends, but drilling down all the way to counties, zip codes, and customizable market radiuses gives you some really valuable information that your client would really love to see. It does start off on this competitor section. So not only is it going to show you, how many firms are in this industry and area. In this case, it looks like about 130 plumbers in the county. It breaks that down into how many of those are single site locations, which we call firms, how many of them are small businesses, startups, and branch operations. So it gives you a little breakdown. There's also a competitors map right here. So this will give you an interactive Google map. We've overlaid our information on the Google map. So these red drop pins are the location of the competitors. And you can click on these drop pins, and it's going to bring up the name of that competitor. There's also this competitor list here to the left of the map. So as you click on the drop pin, it's going to highlight them on this list. And it's going to show you some additional information. It's going to show you their street address, the distance from the center point of this county. You can also make the center point the location of your client. So if you did that during the creation process, it'll show you how far this competitor is from your client.
Okay, we have some more questions.
Okay.
Does the industry report include the Michael Porter analysis?
It does not.
Okay. The next question is, once you purchase a report, can you access all 3 versions, PDF, HTML, and CSV?
You can, yeah. So when you purchase a report, it actually creates a temporary account for you, which looks just like this page right here. So it looks just like our subscription account, our subscriptions accounts do, but instead of all the reports that you've accessed during your subscription term, it will simply just have that one report that you've purchased. And you can log back into that account at any time and access the different versions of the report.
And how long is that available if you purchase it that way?
I believe those accounts are available for up to a year.
Okay. Then the next question is the average wage an annual wage, and is rent monthly or annual?
They're both annual, both average annual.
Okay, that's all our questions for now.
Okay, sounds good. Great, yep, so getting back to the competitor map, we see the list of competitors over here to the left, and these are interactive. So if you click on the drop pin, it'll show them on the list, and if you click on them on the list, it'll show where they're located on the map. So if I click on Joe the plumber, we can see where he is on the map. We'll see his street address, distance from the center point. We also have a sales bracket, so that's our estimated annual sales. So we assume we're estimating that Joe the plumber is between 500,000 and $1 million in annual sales. And if they have a website available, we'll list that out as well. All right, moving on to the next section, we have industry market volume. So this will show basically the size of the industry in this market area in terms of total sales. We'll not only see total sales for the entire industry on this table up top, but we'll also see the total sales for just the small businesses and just the startups in that area.
And we have a question, another question. How is the estimate of sales determined?
Yes, good question. So for this particular report, we actually come up with industry and area-specific sales per employee numbers, and then we're applying that sales per employee number to the number of employees at that business to come up with an estimated range for their annual sales.
Okay, and then what's the break point between what you have listed as small business and all the other businesses?
Yep, yeah, good question. So over here to the left, we're always trying to give you helpful information that you may need, including any definitions. So over here we are defining a small business. We define a small business as a firm. Also, let me go back to this competitor because there's a few different types of businesses that we have listed here. Firms are independent companies, so just a single site location. Small business, less than 25 employees. A startup is within their first 2 years of operation, so 24 months or younger, and obviously a branch operation. And then, so industry sites, that would be the total number of businesses. And basically, if you add together firms and branches, so that would give you the total industry sites. So 126 plus 10 equals the total of 136. And obviously, a small business is also a firm, most likely a firm, and a startup, could be a small business and a branch operation. Moving back over to the market volume. So yeah, we have total sales. We also have a market share. So we can see what percentage of the total sales is made up of the small businesses and startups. And then down here at the bottom, here's where some of the inputs come into play. So if you inputted your client's annual sales, it shows their market share as well. So ABC Plumbing had about 0.5% of market share in Lancaster County with their 1 million annual sales. Let me move on to some of these other sections. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on all these sections, but I will touch upon some of them. We have average annual sales, median sales, average small business sales, average startup sales, and the annual sales of ABC Plumbing down here at the bottom. We also have a sales rank, so based on your client's annual sales, it will try to place them among the competitors. So this one, about 26 out of the 134 businesses or plumbers in Lancaster County in 2017. And it shows their variance from average sales and variance from median sales, also what sales percentile they fell within. Now, there's also market penetration. So this is showing the industry's sales per person and sales per household, both for the local market area, which in this case is Lancaster County, and for the national industry. So I love this section because, and there's a couple of other sections in here that do this, it will show your local area and how it's comparing to the national industry. So instead of benchmarking your client against their local competitors, this is kind of benchmarking the local industry to the national industry, which is pretty cool to look at. There's also employment numbers, so we can see how many people this industry employs and what's the average number of employees for an operation for a small business, for a startup, and how many employees does our client have down here at the bottom, ABC Plumbing. There's a sales trends by employment class. So this actually breaks down the industry into small, medium, and large, depending on the number of employees. And then it shows you some sales figures like market volume, percent market volume, and average sales by class. There's some productivity information for the industry, such as sales per employee, average annual wage, and rent per employee. And it's showing you those figures for the national industry, for the local industry in Lancaster County, and for your client, ABC Plumbing. There's also some productivity indices within this section, charts. Startup information, how many startups were there in each of the past 3 years, and what were their average sales and market volume. Cessation rates, which are essentially failure rates for the industry. Ownership section shows you industry branch concentration, so the percentage of the industry that is branch operations. And you can see that figure for the local and the national industry. And the final section here is demographics. And this is just your typical U.S. Census population demographics. And these are different sections that expand out. So you have total population, age, race and ethnicity, employment, income, education, and housing demographics.
Okay, we have a couple more questions.
Okay.
The next one is, how do you determine market share?
Let me go back to that section right here. So I'm not sure which market share they're referring to. If it's the one of the where it actually shows the market share of your client, you would have to put in their annual sales. So you would have to use the input section and enter in your client's annual sales. And then it's simply showing that as a percentage of the total industry sales in that area. So if you can see here, we have the industry's total sales for each year. This is the total sales for plumbing contractors in Lancaster County. And then it's simply showing your client's market share as a percentage of those total sales, total market volume.
The next question is, if you search for an industry market report and the results are too small of a population to use, is there still a one-time charge?
No, you'll be notified of that before you would purchase the report. So as you're creating this report, if you select an industry and a market area and there's not enough businesses in that industry and area to create a report, there will be a little pop-up that comes up that says not enough industry operations. So at that point, you would either have to make the market area bigger, or you could also do a broader industry segment with more firms in it to try to get enough industry operations in there. But you would not be charged anything until you got a report that is available and checked out.
Okay, that's all our questions for now.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, so that concludes my the aspect of the demo covering the industry market report series. As I said before, it's a really powerful tool to be able to drill down to very specific industries and local areas and get some market statistics, and also seeing how your client stacks up against some of that local competition. So pretty cool report right here. Just go back to the main website. That actually concludes my aspect of the live demo. So I went over where the data comes from in BizMiner, how we collect data, raw data from both public government sources and private statistical sources and went over the reliability and granularity of that data. I also showed you how to create and access the industry financial report and industry market report, and went over some of the features and benefits of those new, or should I say redesigned report series. So at this time, I do want to give everybody one last chance to ask me any questions on my aspect of the live demo before I turn it over to Don and he gives you a case study using the BizMiner data.
Okay, it doesn't look like there's any questions coming through.
All right, well then I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and Don, I will go ahead and pass it over to you.
Sounds good. I would like to make just a real quick comment, and that is on the introduction. Drysdale Valuation is now operating as Gibraltar Business Valuations, and that happened a couple of years ago. So if you are accessing BizMiner through BVR, this is the screen that you will see. You just click right here, and I won't do that, but I do have it pulled up, and you'll go through the authentication, and then you'll come here to select your industry report. We recently valued a manufacturer of prosthetics. And so that's a fairly specific industry. The NAICS code for that is 339113. So if I go there and do that search, it comes up, and it comes up as surgical appliance and supplies manufacturing. But as demonstrated previously, if we drill down here, we have prosthetic manufacturers, and then they even break it down into artificial limb manufacturers. So our company did more than just artificial limbs. So we would go here, click it, so our company operated throughout the U.S. and actually has some foreign sales. So we would select all of the U.S., and their sales class was between 10 and 25 million. Now, I already downloaded that to make it go a little quicker. And when you download the CSV, this is what it looks like. So this is just the raw data. And what we have done is set up our model so that we can download this data directly into it. We have a tab in our Excel model. So I just go down here, grab all the data, copy it, and then pull up our Excel model and just paste the values. So our model is set up to know which cells to grab, and you can see here we've got the P&L data as percentages, balance sheet percentages, and then we get into the different financial ratios. Now, we have it so it goes directly to different areas. So this, what we have done, the first thing we look at is a revenue index. And this is to compare the revenue, specifically revenue growth, between our subject company and the peer data. And so you can see here, we chugged along. We used 2014 as our base period. We chugged along at about the same level of growth, and all of a sudden, our growth expands more so than the industry. The reason that happened is, after inquiring with the client, is that they introduced some new products that helped to their sales. And then we just go through and show different charts. Now, you can use the BizMiner data, and that's great. It looks wonderful. But we also can add in, if we need it, let me show you here. I can go in, and if I have guideline public company data, I can put that in as well. So that's why we do it this way. Okay, and then we just have a series of graphs that show different ratios and different percentages. So we got our gross profit percentages. Our company's gross profit percentage has been consistently higher than the BizMiner peers. Our operating expenses has also been higher. So we want to look at pre-tax profit margins. And as you can see, we had a couple of rough years. Once they got past that, our profit margins exceeded the peers. And so they've turned things around and have done some things right. We chart out our pre-tax return on assets and pre-tax return on equity. And with higher profitability, you would expect that to be that way. We also go through our days sales outstanding, inventory outstanding, payables outstanding to come up with a cash conversion cycle. And so we collect our receivables a little more quickly than the peers. Our inventory is fairly similar, but we also pay our vendors more quickly than the peers, resulting in a cash conversion cycle that is similar. And then what we do is when we do our management interviews, we're going to say, okay, why are you collecting these more quickly, and why are you paying your vendors more quickly? Other ratios, revenue to assets, our liquidity ratios, current ratio and quick ratio, and you can see they're much higher. I would ask the client in this case, okay, what do you have working capital that is in excess of needs, which appears might be the case based on these ratios. Sales to working capital ratio, since our working capital, our current ratio is higher, we would expect our sales to working capital ratio to be lower than the BizMiner peers. We look at debt ratios, interest coverage, and so on. And then, so we can look at any of the ratios that BizMiner produces. We compute them in the same manner that BizMiner does for comparability purposes. We also do that when we have public guideline companies. We make sure they're computed in a consistent manner. And we present these tables and charts in our report, and based on our interviews with management, explain those things in the report. So that's a quick overview of how we use the BizMiner data. Any questions before I close out my part of the presentation?
I haven't seen any questions come through, Don.
Okay. All right, with that, I'll turn it back over to the folks at BBR.
Well, terrific. Thanks very much, Don Drysdale and Galen Pugh, for a very impressive demo. And I want to